So I did finish Diablo 4, and I had originally started on Druid because that's my thing. That's what I love. I like Druids. But I don't know, the whole like beginning experience for Druid was it felt bad, and I had heard it was bad, but I didn't truly understand just how bad it really was until I made a switch to Rogue and found out just how quickly Rogue melts everything. After beating the game on Rogue, I did go back and complete it on Druid. And once I got to about level 30 or so, Druid did feel a lot better, but it was kind of obvious that Druid meant like it's very powerful with like synergies, but you kind of need to have all those skills already in place before it does anything at all. So I got the Druid to level 50, and I've started doing the Nightmare dungeons as well as a little bit of the Malignant Season 1 stuff. But I think at this point I'm kind of done with the game for now because I have my Druid in a comfortable position where I'm kind of doing my own build, and I ended up with like just my own scuffed version of like a Shred Bulwark build. I liked Shred. I think originally I had Debilitating Roar instead of Bulwark, but then I started experimenting with Bulwark and I found out, yeah, that's why everybody uses Bulwark. It's really, really powerful, especially once you get some of the legendaries that go along with that. And I've just hit this point where I kind of don't really want to level my Druid anymore. Like, he's at level 54, and we're getting close to the end of the season. There's absolutely no chance I'm going to reach 100. I just don't play enough for that. And there's really no chance I'm going to get any of the really coveted uniques specifically for my build. I think one was what was it, Tempest Roar, that allows all the storm skills to be werewolf skills. Like, I just don't see myself reaching any of that, and so I don't really have any desire to try. I also I don't want to continue leveling my Druid because, like, the higher level I get, the weaker he's going to get unless I get those specific legendaries. Like, yeah, I can continue getting, like, sacred items that are ever so slightly better than the previous sacred items I already have, but I kind of have, like, a good mix of legendary powers that I enjoy. So it's just kind of like the character is quote-unquote done, and I can't trade for the item I want. But I want to go ahead and give my casual thoughts on the game. Like, I'm no authority by any means. I'm just kind of throwing this out here, get my thoughts out, honestly, the whole making the YouTube videos, I'm just trying to be a better speaker because I have a lot of problems, especially I say and like a whole lot while I'm talking. So I kind of figured the more videos I make, the better I can be at speaking. So with Diablo 4, I have what I would call some minor gripes and some actual problems. The minor gripes are things that, like, they kind of bug me while I'm playing the game, but they don't make me, like, quit the game or want to play something else. And then the actual problems are just, like, moments I have where it's just kind of, I almost stop in the game and I'm just thinking, why? Why is it like this? Why do I need to keep doing this? Why did Blizzard design it this way? What were they thinking? So as far as, like, my minor gripes go, the first one is that we can't, like, just auto pick up the various fetch quest items. When you go up in the mountains and you're supposed to kill the Khazra and they want you to collect a whole bunch of Khazra bones, okay, I kill a whole group of Khazra and like 10 of those things drop, and I need to click on every single one, and it's not just an auto pickup like gold is an auto pickup. I don't understand that. Like, it's just kind of, it's a little bit annoying. Like, I'll keep playing, but it just seems annoying that I have to do that for just a mass of quest items. Like, just go ahead and let me just auto pick up the quest items and the quest is complete. I move on. There's also, like, this, I think it's a random bug where I can't skip the dialogue for random quests. And I can't tell if it's actually random quests or if it's, like, the same quests and, like, they're missing a variable that's supposed to allow you to skip them. I know one example I had of this was the Gold Well Spent quest from Meros and Ministad. But I don't know if it was just a random bug that happened or if that happens every time you have that quest. Another gripe I had was that you unlock all of your class specializations at 15, but very often you can't actually go and complete whatever quest for those specializations until a much later level because they've been, like, I think the barbarian one was moved into an area that was like level 25 or some shit, and it's just like, oh, I gotta like travel all the way across the map now, and I don't have my mount, and I'm going into an area that's like, it's like 10 levels above me. Like, what am I doing here? Why couldn't the quest just be available right in Kyovashad? Why can't all of the classes have their class thing, at least to start, in Kyovashad? That being said, I really did enjoy the Druid class quest, and that's kind of my next thing. Some of the class specializations seem to, like, they just have a lot more love put into them as opposed to others. Like with the Druid class specialization, you go clear out a stronghold that ends up becoming like a whole dedicated like Druid themed area, and the lore of it ties into one of the major boss fights with Astaroth, and how he had previously just scarred and destroyed this whole land and just put all the druids to the flame. But then you have the three druids, Donam being among one of them, who defeat Astaroth and end up, they end up burying him underground, and then they put this capstone dungeon on top of him to like try and contain him, and they also put him in Soulstone. It's a whole big thing. But it's like you have the area that's dedicated to that part of the story's lore. So it's like, it's a pretty big thing. And then as a druid, you go and you start being able to loot spirit boons, or I'm sorry, spirit offerings, which you then bring back to the druid area. What was it called? Tour Dolgar? I can't remember exactly, but you collect your spirit offerings, you bring them back to the druid area, and then you offer them to the spirit animals, whom, by the way, was another quest that you had to go and rescue the spirit of this one very powerful druid who had been tied to nature, but like his corpse was bound within this rotting stag that the demons had corrupted. So you go rescue him, and now you can give your offerings to the spirits, and they had like 4 different spirits, and each one of those spirits had like 3 or 4 different options that you have to choose from. So you've got this whole array of like different choices that you get to play around with. And by also needing to offer spirit offerings, that kind of puts up a little bit of a progression. It gives you a little bit of chase of something that, like, yeah, you should be able to fill it out fairly quickly, but in the meantime, it's an excuse to like kind of play with them one at a time, because you only have access to like one part of the tree at a time, so you get a little bit of a better feel for it. The entire thing, I feel like, is very well thought out. It's got a lot of love and a lot more like quest put into it than, say, the Rogue. I'm struggling to remember what the Rogue even did. I think the Rogue had literally one fucking quest, and it's just a dungeon with a boss at the end. In fact, I'm trying to remember, was there even a dungeon? I don't remember. Maybe you just went to a part of the world and it's just a boss and you kill him and you're done. I don't know. The Rogue was able to complete things so fucking quickly. It's kind of a blur how much of there was in that quest. I just kind of melted everything. But you complete that, and then you get your specialization is 3 options. And you had to level up a bit to get access to all 3 options. But among those 3 options, you had the combo points, which was like, at least up to level 50, seemed like the only viable or optimal one, because the damage increase from, having your combos on your core skill was so powerful. So why would I bother with the other 2? What was the other one? Insight, and then it's like I have to target specific. Just increase the damage of my twisting blades. We're good to go. That's all I need. So it's and that was it. I don't remember there being any other part to the Rogue quest other than just like one dungeon and one boss. I'm not sure what else we were really trying to do there. Some of the classes, in comparison to others, clearly there's a lot more like attention given, like especially to the Druid, as part of like their class specialization and how you unlock that and go about it. And it's got its own little mini progression system, and it's tied very well into the story's lore. And it's like it's part of this very significant moment in the story with one of the characters that I love. Another minor gripe, several of the boss fight arenas have this zoomed out camera angle, but only after the boss is defeated, and I don't understand why that is. One example I have is the Mammon and Gimbar boss fight. When you're fighting the boss, you basically have the same camera, the same zoomed in camera that you're stuck in throughout the entire game, but then once you defeat the boss, suddenly the camera spans back outwards, and you get a really, really nice cinematic view of the boss arena itself. And I don't understand why you didn't have that view to begin with for the boss fight itself when you're trying to see the mechanics. You know, you're trying to avoid the shit. I mean, can't I have the zoomed out camera like that the whole time? For the whole boss fight, at least? Speaking of boss fights, there's some really weird checkpoint placements in the game. Like, if you die in a boss fight, the checkpoint for that boss is not always, like, it's not directly outside the boss arena. It's, like, some random point elsewhere in the dungeon. Like, I remember I had died once to, what's it? Tyrant King Brawl? Whatever his name is. He's at, like, the end of Act 3 or something. But I died on that fight once, and instead of my checkpoint being right at the healing well at the beginning of the boss fight arena, which is where they should all be right at that healing well at the entrance. Instead, I'm teleported like halfway back through the entire fucking dungeon, and then I have to backtrack all the way back to the boss arena. And I don't get it. Why am I having to do this? Like, oh well, I guess I'll keep going. And my last minor gripe is that whenever you dismount from your horse, it's kind of weird. The whole motion feels a little bit weird because the whole camera just jerks backwards. Because when you dismount from the horse, you dismount like a little bit to the side, but the game server has to like replace where you are, so you're ever so slightly backwards, so the camera like just whips backwards a little bit. And I feel like just a really good solution to this would be to have the character dismount a little bit ahead of the horse. Like when you dismount from your horse, you get flung forward a little bit slightly, kind of like when you're casting your skill to dismount. Your character moves forward a little bit, so that way the camera just doesn't like suddenly stop and jerk back when you dismount. The camera has a smooth moment continuing forward as you continue to walk. It just feels like it would be a whole lot better. It'd be a whole lot smoother. It wouldn't be this weird, jarring, uncanny camera movement that kind of, you know, it grabs my attention, but not in a good way. So that's as far as like minor little gripes I have while I was playing the game. Here are some of the actual, like, these are the big actual fucking problems that kind of make me not want to play the game any further. And the first one is, of course, the stash. And I've heard a lot about the stash. I understand that it's basically copied over from D3. My problem is that the way the stash was designed in D3 was already a problem. It shouldn't have been that way at all. This one's really obvious. I mean, to me, at least. I guess it's a problem elsewhere, but I think that you shouldn't be loading anyone's stash, ever, at all, until you initiate a trade. And then when you initiate a trade, you only load one person's stash. That's it. You load the stash of the one person you are currently trying to trade with. And that should not take forever. Why? Because it's only one person. It's only got to load the one person stash. You know, maybe there's a brief moment, you know, where you have server communication and the game might need to load a couple like texture files into memory. But other than that, it shouldn't be a huge deal, because I'm not going to spend the majority of my time trying to trade with people. I'm spending the majority of my time trying to move around without sudden constant spikes of lag. And the way the game is now, I'm being forced to have these sudden and constant spikes of lag, regardless of whether I want to trade with not. So it's just, the whole system in general just doesn't make any sense. It's like, why am I loading anybody's stash? I shouldn't be loading loading nobody's stash. I'm not trading with anyone. You know, kind of, fuck off. I don't want it. Just only load one person's stash at a time, and it's the person that you are currently trading with, and that's it. Nobody else. My next big problem, the seasonal mechanics are being designed for the trash bin instead of being considered as, like, permanent placements in the game. You know, it's like we had no plans to make this a permanent addition, and I mean, that alone, I don't know if I'm actually super bothered by that. I guess I'm more bothered that Blizzard has this propensity to spend an enormous amount of time and effort and man hours and money. Those man hours cost money into systems that they know from the offset they are going to throw in the trash in a few months. I don't know why they keep doing that. They kept doing it with WoW, and I did not enjoy it. And I know Dragonfight's supposed to be a little bit different, but like I've been done with WoW. Like I'm not going back to that. They couldn't like keep to anything. It just sort of it just kind of everything kept getting erased, and now the same thing's going to happen with Diablo 4, where it's like let's say we have a season where there's a mechanic that I am really enjoying. Well, I get to enjoy it for a few months, and then it's all gone. And then it's like, my character goes to the Eternal Realms, but the Eternal Realms don't hold on to these mechanics. And I can kind of understand that there might be a lot of bloat to the game. Like, where do you fit all this crap in the Eternal Realms, right? Because all the stuff with the Malignant, that takes up space. It takes up all the benches take up space in Kyovashad. It's taking up certain dungeons in the world. And if you want to go on for like 30 seasons of this stuff, I can imagine that this is a problem in the future, where you're literally running out of world space to work with. But at least for now, like, I feel like the purpose of the Eternal Realms should be to hold on to all these things. You know, if you imagine you have a card game, and the card game works on seasons, it's usually an annual thing. And you'll have a certain release of cards, and those release of cards are good for like a year or a year and a half, or maybe even 2 years, something like that. You know, but then they'll rotate out. But then you have a separate set of play where like all the cards are allowed, you know, and maybe you have like a few like crazy combinations that end up getting banned. That happens in every card game. But the general idea is that, hey, remember all of these like previous seasons that we've had in the card game? Well, in the Eternal card game season, you're free to mix and match all of these different things. And Diablo 4's Eternal Realm should be that. The Eternal Realm should be a place where you get to mix and match all of the different seasonal stuff and just go absolutely ham crazy, see what sort of just weird bullshit you can come up with. And instead, what's going to happen is my druid, the one whom I've kind of built around whatever mechanics we have for this season, is going to go to the Eternal Realm, and he's going to lose all the shit that currently, like, made him currently fun to play. And I kind of just don't want to deal with it. You know? It's like, I have no problem creating a new character for a season. In fact, that's actually how I would prefer to play the game. But I would like to see the Eternal Realm be a place where you can keep on to all the different seasonal stuff and just mix and match it and have fun. And that brings me to the single worst problem that I have with this game is the inability to trade uniques and legendaries. Because uniques and legendaries are the only items in the game that were ever worth trading to begin with. I mean, I literally can't think of anything else I would ever even want to trade. What would I want to trade? I just there's some legendaries I need, and then there's uniques, and then you have like the super uniques. And you can't trade the super unique for another super unique? Like, what is this? Like, I can understand, like, a solo self-found character. I understand the fun of that. And to be honest, that's kind of what I prefer. But the fact is, you know, if I'm working on my druid and I know there's a specific unique I want for my druid, I want that damn Tempest Roar. And I mean, there's no chance I would ever get it before the end of the season. But, you know, maybe I could trade for it. No, I can't. I can't trade for it. I can't trade for the only items that have any trade value to me whatsoever. I don't understand it. Why was that ever a decision? Why did Blizzard ever bother with that? Why? Why would they prevent you from trading uniques? It's the only thing I want to trade. What is this? I don't really see any reason to like continue playing on for multiple seasons if I'm just having to continue to deal with these things. A couple more thoughts at the end of this video. One idea, I had found out that the resistances are not actually broken in the game. Blizzard had just completely changed how they worked. And I can understand and even slightly agree with why they made the change, but I would like to see something else. This game is already a little bit... It's complicated enough as it is. Especially with like all the different damage buckets. I think the biggest problem with that is that the game doesn't simply tell you how that system works, and like the whole like your attack power or your attack rating or whatever it doesn't really reflect what it is that your character is doing. And it's like you're supposed to be collecting all these different damage buckets, but then the game never like explains that to you. You have to find that out through the community, which is like, okay, I'm glad there was ever any community to, that's still there. But if this is such like a core fundamental part of the game, shouldn't the game be telling me this? Anyway, as far as resistances go, I think what I would like to see with resistances is that I'm fine with your armor reducing elemental damage, but what I would like to see is your resistances reducing or mitigating the secondary effects of, like, say, chill and frozen. So, like, your armor will reduce cold damage you receive, but then your cold resistance makes you more resistant to the chill and frozen effects. And then I would like to see the other elements have, like, other unique secondary effects that sort of make them a little more meaningful. Like, if you get poison resistance, that reduces the frequency that the dot hits you. We can take a page from Elder Scrolls and say that lightning damage will drain your resource, and if you get lightning resistance, that mitigates the amount of resource drain you got. Fire damage could cause, like, successive hits of fire damage to increase, and if you have fire resistance, that reduces the amount that each, like, successive fire hit damages you for. Just something like that, just something to give each of the elemental damage types, like, more flavor, more character to them. Something you would have to actually think about as, like, which one of these things is really, like, the problem for my character, and which one should I be focusing on as a resistance. And I guess my last thought here is, it's very druid specific, but Stormstrike, it's really good. It's too good. It gives you a 50% chance to put vulnerable on multiple targets, and vulnerable itself is a whole problem. It gives you damage reduction. It has good spirit regeneration, especially if you get you're doing I'm doing the Shred Werewolf build, so I can get the Clarity passive. So every time I go back into my human form, I get even more spirit. Stormstrike it synergizes very well with, like, Shapeshift and Nature builds. I mean, there's no reason for me to ever pick any other basic skill. Stormstrike has everything I could possibly want in a basic skill. It's got everything. So yeah, it's a little too good. I would like to see some of that love spread to maybe the other ones a little bit. And yeah, I mean, that's basically it. I know Blizzard has been really, really hyping up their talks about Season 2, but to be perfectly honest, I just don't see Season 2 being anything more than just more of Season 1. I mean, I'm just, I think I'd rather just, like, move on to, like, do other things, I really like druids in games, and I play D&D a lot, and so I kind of want to go over, like, druids in D&D, and, like, their spells and how I like to play them. So that would definitely be something I would love to talk about. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm just more or less done with Diablo 4.